Hello, everybody. So today we're going to be talking about geospatial intelligence in the cloud. A little bit of an agenda. We're going to go over a little bit of an intro, jump into what geospatial intelligence is and how are we looking at it at Burns & McDonnell, jumping into FME Server in the cloud, as well as kind of pinpointing on the notification services, and then time permitting, which we should be good, we're going to jump into some demos. So myself, I'm Matt Jones. I'm a developer at Burns & McDonnell. I've got a computer science background. Using FME for about 5 years now. I spent a lot of time doing a lot of JavaScript as well as a lot of FME.
And I am Alex Olmos. I'm a project manager at Burns & McDonnell. For those of you who are not familiar with Burns & McDonnell, our headquarters is in Kansas City, Missouri. We're a full-service international engineering consulting company. We do what affects your lives on a daily basis. Our firm market verticals are aviation, transportation, highways and bridges, water, wastewater, oil, gas, pipelines and terminals, transmission and distribution, also our environmental studies. So you can just imagine how many types of data formats we get on a daily, weekly basis. We're asked to manage and host and fix a lot of information that we get from different divisions. Matt and I are in the business and technology division of our firm. We are basically the technology arm for the company, supporting programs and projects internally and externally to our clients worldwide. Information management, data management, integration, FME services, GIS services, and analysis is basically our niche in our division. All these services are published and provided to our end users via our OneTouch PM application. OneTouch PM is basically our program management tool. It's 3D and 4D. It is a web-based application, therefore easy to access to a geospatial data, including our project management dashboards for critical information, dissemination between teams and project managers. Our websites are real-time or static depending on the business case. Where we are now with our application and services, it could not have been possible without SAFE or FME. It's an incredible dynamic software. Our clients love the services and solutions we provide them with FME. It's allowed us to empower our clients. We create transparency across all our services. We create real-time reporting, data integration, and making legacy systems accessible to others. So what we do is connect systems, data, and people, and that's basically our specialty. So now I'll hand it over to Matt, and he's one of our lead developers. He's going to give you some good demos.
So just to kind of summarize, this is some of the stuff that Alex just kind of mentioned. We do spend a lot of time working with 4D globe applications and a lot of web integrations as well. Moving on, let's talk about geospatial intelligence and what is this and why should you be caring about this right now. So there's always a dictionary definition for everything. For this case, this one might be a little long, but it's a pretty good one when you look at it. How do we look at it at Burns & McDonnell? We look at it as a math equation, right? So data plus your location equals knowledge. Without any piece of that equation, you're just going to be missing something, right? So if you don't have the data, but you have a location, you may not have all the knowledge you need. If you have the data without a location, you're probably going to be missing a lot of information as well. So kind of a good example of this, say you have a friend or a colleague coming into work or coming into town. For this case, we're going to use Vancouver since that's where we're all at. You say, hey, why don't you get a hotel room at the Ramada? They've got great rates, really close, it'd be perfect. Well, quick Google search for hotels, Ramada in Vancouver. I mean, there's 4 of them, right? So what are the chances that he's going to actually end up at the right hotel? So you've got the data. You don't have the specific location that they're trying to find, right? You just have the Ramada. So you're kind of missing out on that last piece for that math equation. The second you say, hey, how about you stay at the Ramada Limited and you add a location, in this case, we're going to use an address. So at 435 West Pender Street, you now have that second piece of the equation. So data plus that location, you now have the knowledge that you need to actually achieve what you're trying to do, and you can find your colleague or friend. Another example that we see all the time is that people have all these super intricate databases behind the scenes, whether it's Oracle, SQL Server, Microsoft Access. They can have all these attributes, all this different information about these polls, And if I need to go tell my crews out there, say, hey, pole number 182 something, something, something needs to get checked out. Well, if he doesn't know the location or there's no location tied into our backend database, how is this guy gonna know where he's supposed to go, right? His chances are probably not very likely. So again, data, there's no location there, so he's probably doesn't have the knowledge that he needs to get to work. The second you add a location again, for this case, we're gonna use the latitude and longitude, with the pole ID, guess what? He can get to work pretty efficiently. He knows exactly where he's going. He knows the pole that he needs to be working on. So again, we're completing that math equation. Just a quick show of hands. How many people are familiar with geocaching? Okay, yeah, quite a few. So for those who don't know, this is kind of almost like an open-ended scavenger hunt, right? There's some little trinkets out there, there's little chests, there's little boxes. Most of them contain something that's kind of cool. Somebody has come by, found it, either wrote a note in there, took a piece of something, left a piece of something. Kind of a cool scavenger hunt, right? Try imagining this without the geo side of it. So you've just got the data, you don't have the location. How are you supposed to find any of these cool little objects, right? So again, you would just be caching. I'm not really sure how well that would work. So kind of looking back at some of the added benefits and how we look at geospatial intelligence, you get to avoid a lot of headaches from confusion, right? So think back to the hotel example. So it's now time to pick up your friend or coworker for the morning, and you say, hey man, I'm outside the Ramada, where are you at? And he goes, hey, I'm outside the Ramada too, where are you at? If you guys are at different hotels because you were confused about which location you're at, guess what? You've got a lot of headaches on your hand and you're now trying to find each other. Second example was the pole inspector. If your crews are out at the wrong store and now they've done a half a day's worth of work because they didn't have the right location, they're now a half a day behind. You might be a full day behind by the time they get to the correct location, right? So now you're back time and money. And then once you add that location, you can actually now start to get on the forefront of your data. So instead of being reactive, you can be proactive, right? You can start doing things like analytics on your data, start finding where things might start to go wrong sooner than later. So if you're starting to see a trend, say, this pipeline is starting to get aged over here. We just did maintenance over here. This location's coming up next. Let's get on the forefront of data and avoid having to be reactive. So where does FME Server come into play with this? You guys have probably heard this term a lot this week. We're going to kind of ingrain it again. It's the cloud, right? So whether you're using Amazon Web Services or Azure or any of the other providers, we're using a lot of Amazon Web Services. And recently, we attended an Amazon presentation, and one of the things that kind of stuck and hit home for me was the term, cloud is the new normal. So let that sink in for a second. Cloud is the new normal. So we're seeing this across the nation, across the world, that IT infrastructures and individual small companies are going to the cloud now, whether it's first or they're starting to migrate things out there now. And part of that's just because of time, space, and money. So a good example of this is when we were first standing up FME servers, it was taking us about 2 to 4 weeks before we could actually get out there and work on that FME server. That's 2 to 4 weeks from the time that we actually needed it. You have to go through procurement, you'd have to actually buy the server, you have to find the server space where you were hosting it at, it had to come in over the mail, you had to install everything on there, IT had to make sure all the firewalls were set up correctly, and then you had to drive it across town to where you were actually hosting it at, get it installed. 4 weeks later, you're ready to rock and roll when you needed it 4 weeks ago, right? With the cloud now, Amazon Web Services, for instance, you can just click a few buttons. Within 15 minutes, you're ready to rock and roll. So what used to be 4 weeks, now 15 minutes, you can actually solve that problem that you're trying to take care of now. You want to talk a little bit about security?
Yeah, so I'm by no means a cybersecurity expert, but I'm usually at the front end of questions about security. So my recommendations from like a consultant perspective is make friends with your IT security quickly and also get a counterpart on the client side. Luckily we have physical and cybersecurity department, and they've been able to help us and answer quite a few questions. We've also gone through several penetration tests from our clients, and we've passed several of those. It has been a challenge to just go through all the requirements. One time I got a spreadsheet of requirements from a client, and it had maybe 40 questions on the first tab, and there was 3 other tabs to go. So I just passed that on to our cybersecurity experts. We have certified hackers and also Cloud Plus certification. So it was beneficial to just build those relationships and just network within your company, just to make your client or your infrastructure just comfortable with the cloud. So, go ahead.
And these are just some of the lists of certifications that Amazon already have done the work for. So whether it's these different market verticals, Amazon has actually already went out and made sure that they meet all these requirements for you. So whether you're a government agency or a freelance startup, chances are that they've probably done their background checks on getting all their security in line. A kind of a funny personal example. So I was writing a little app that essentially was just going out to Amazon S3, checking to see how many photos I had in a folder. Well, DumDum over here committed my Amazon public and private keys out to GitHub. Now keep in mind, GitHub and my Amazon account were not linked at all. I get this email less than 30 minutes later saying, hey, your account's been compromised. Here's the exact location that we found with your public and private keys. That's Amazon getting my back because I didn't realize that I had committed that out. Now, those keys only had access to read the bucket and list the objects within the bucket, but imagine what would have happened if they were a little bit more open. Amazon is looking out for you. They've done their background checks. They've got everything in place to be able to detect when you do something like this. I have not committed these keys again, and these are actually no longer working, so you're welcome to write them down, but they probably won't do anything. The other thing about the cloud and FME server is that everybody just expects everything to be accessible over the internet now, whether it's your phone. I mean, think of how vital our phones are in our everyday lives. You know, why should your workspaces be any differently, right? You're working in your desktop. If you go home and you forgot your laptop there, if you need to run something or something along those lines, you can do it with FME server, whereas before with just FME Workbench, you couldn't actually do that, right? So again, if everything's accessible over their phones and you're over the internet, your translations probably shouldn't be any different either. So let FME server handle all that heavy lifting. When you move out to the cloud, they've already done all the bulk work for all of the server admin piece and all the templates and everything that you would need, as well as they've already integrated with all these cloud providers through custom transformers, readers, writers, pretty much everything along those lines that you would normally work with on a daily basis. That doesn't change when you move out to the cloud, right? It's all already done for you. And then you also get this huge suite of tools. So things like the notification services, any web protocols over HTTP, HTTPS, things along those lines. It's all already done for you. So again, let them handle the heavy lifting. So you're gonna shift gears a little bit to a specific part, the notification services. So one of the real things that I like about this is it's very, very easy to get started in working with. And you know, I'm a developer background, but the very nice thing about the notification services is typically you don't actually need any code, or if you do need code, it's very, very little to get this working. So it's push data to and from FME server. So something happens, think of it almost like a trigger. So some event happens out there, FME server picks it up, and it pushes data to and from the FME server. And you get to actually spend a little bit more time analyzing your data, and you get just kind of the peace of mind that stuff is happening without you having to go personally click that play button every time. So again, how this works, think about the triggers from the cloud. So we're going to focus on Amazon simple notification services here in a few, but what that happens is some event, whether you get an email, text message, some file changes somewhere, that gets a trigger from the cloud providers. FME server notifications pick that up, process data through your normal workflows that you've uploaded to FME server, and then you get to unleash your data. So typical FME readers, writers, you know, if I'm working in the web, I'm going to typically want data as JSON or GeoJSON. FME server can do that. If you need to send an email or get data in a shapefile zipped up, you know, those are all things that are possible within FME Workbench. That doesn't change again when you move to FME server. So I think at this time we're going to switch over to some demos. Give me just a second to get the screen switched over. So while doing this, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually send myself an email. And what this is going to do is exactly what we're kind of talking about with the simple notification services. So just sent myself an email. what we're gonna do is kind of take a look quickly at Amazon SNS. So again, this is all done with 0 lines of code, and what you can do is start triggering workspaces based on a notification or some event. So within Amazon console, you can get to the SNS area. I'm gonna go ahead and click on my topic. In here, you can see FME World Tour demo. I did this for St. Louis during the World Tour. Down here, you can see our FME server where this is going to. So when this says, it says, hey, all right, something happened. Let's send a notification to this endpoint. Win FME test. Let's send it there. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to FME server, and right here, SNS consumer, FME demo MJ. I'm Matt Jones. What this was done, let's see what the time, today at 16:15, which my clock's still a little set off to Central Time Zone, but that was a minute ago when I sent that email. So this translation doesn't do much, but the concept is that you connect up your normal workflows to it, whether somebody sends an email or text. What happens then is it picks up. If you need to send an email back, I can say, hey, here's your new data set, ready to rock and roll. 0 lines of code. That's kind of cool. A second notification service that we typically use a lot is, sorry, wrong one. Oh, no, that's good. Is a lot of Amazon S3 file watching. So one of the other cool things about Amazon S3 is that you can put files out there. FME server can actually sit there and almost pull that and say, hey, has this file been updated? Has this file been deleted? Has this file been added? So what you can do is you put in your public-private keys, the path to watch, am I watching any file directories below? How frequently am I going to check it? And again, has a file been added, removed, modified, anything along those lines? That's something that we typically do a lot for a lot of event-driven notifications. Again, 0 lines of code. If I were to go out there and update this file or delete it, I get a trigger straight to FME server and it'd run my workbench. The last example that we're going to show does involve a little bit of code, but again, same concept, just a little bit of code, calling an FME server workspace, and you can get a pretty big result. So, kind of to set up the example, so think about a big storm coming through overnight. Knocked out some power in the city, you need to get up in the morning and you need to dispatch your crews to find the right location and kind of get this mess all situated. So what we have here is we have an outage heat map. So this is tied directly back into some system that you have in place. Say if I have all of my customers in my power area. So I can do this and say, okay, this person has reported an outage. This person has reported an outage. Because I have all of that math equation in my backend system with the data and the location, what I can do now is in the morning when I come in and the crews say, hey, where do I need to go? Based on this trigger right here, so our trigger in this case is this checkbox. So it's a little bit different from your emails or your file changing. What you can do now is based on an event within a web UI, say, hey, go run this translation. So I'm gonna do this again so that we can see this again. What this is doing is this is going out to FME server, saying, hey, I'm ready for that data. It's crunching through my workspace. It's delivering me back that data in a heat map now. So I'm gonna fly into St. Louis here. Jumping out to FME server, crunching the data, sending back the data that I need to display this heat map. Well, now I can actually see where the bulk of my customers are having issues with power, and I can actually dispatch crews. You know, maybe I may not focus so much downtown, but maybe in this Chesterfield area over here, or maybe up here in Ferguson, right? So you're not sending crews just out blindly looking for power outages, right? You have all this data, you're now on the forefront of it, and again, geospatial intelligence. So I think at this time, we're gonna jump back and open up for questions, and I think that's pretty much all we've got. Thank you, guys.
Well done, Matt and Alex. I'm bringing the microphone around, so put up your hand and I'll bring it to you. Questions? I know you have them. Here's a question.
Hey, first time caller over here. How do you feel that the use of cloud services kind of helped you deliver value to your clients and the speed at which you're able to deliver value?
Yeah, so one of the biggest reasons is we're spending a lot of our time in the web. With FME Workbench on your desktop, it's kind of hard to process those workflows. So again, that's why we moved to FME Server, talking about the cloud. So again, it just allowed us to process those normal workflows that we would normally do internally, but somebody would typically be calling you up, or you'd have to schedule something on Windows Task Manager. With those triggers, we're not really hands-on anymore, right? You can publish it out there. You just have the peace of mind that it's actually processing at the time that it's needed to be processed. So you're not sitting there just kind of waiting for somebody to, or just kind of polling on a basis where some data may or may not have changed. You can actually do it based on a real-time event. And so that's been pretty crucial for us.
Other questions? Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, guys.